We believe UTM will become more and more important, and there'll be different aspects of UTM that will become more prominent, especially as we move from these one-off operations to more scaled operations, more beyond visual line of sight operations. UTM helps build the safety case, help ensure the safety of the national airspace.
You're listening to the Drone Radio Show podcast, the show about drones and the people who use them for business, fun, and research. Hosted by Randy Goers.
Hello, everyone. This is Randy Goers, and welcome to the Drone Radio Show podcast, episode 282. What's involved with scaling up unmanned traffic management systems? For that question, we turn to Amit Ganjoo, founder and CEO of Washington, D.C.-based ANRA Technologies, an award-winning drone operations and UAS traffic management platform. It's one thing to develop a UTM system to track a few drones, but it's a much different challenge when the number of drones climb into the hundreds and even thousands. ANRA's UTM and mission management system is designed to meet this challenge and is used by commercial and governmental entities for managing commercial drone operations at scale. Amit has over 20 years of aviation, telecom, and wireless experience in both the federal and the commercial space. He is an engineer and a licensed pilot pursuing his lifelong passion in aviation by building and flying experimental aircraft. As part of his pursuit to efficiently integrate drones into the airspace, Amit is a board member of the Global UTM Association that supports the accelerated and transparent implementation of globally interoperable UTM systems. He is also a member of FAA's Drone Advisory Committee Working Group for UTM. Prior to founding ANRA Technologies, Amit was the co-chair for the FCC Technical Advisory Council for 5G and IoT. He was the director of engineering and principal architect at Ericsson, providing telecom solutions to commercial customers and the federal government, where he was the recipient of the Athena Award. He holds a master's degree in computer science and civil engineering from Iowa State University and a Bachelor of Engineering from Punjab Engineering College. In this edition of the Drone Radio Show, Amit talks about ANRA Technologies' UTM and mission management system, how it can help enterprise companies safely and efficiently scale operations, and he shares his thoughts on the future of unmanned traffic management. But before we hear from Amit, I want to thank those of you who are supporting my funding campaign. Whether it's $1, $100, or much more, you can help defray the cost of production and keep the podcast going and growing. Go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And by the way, if you have an idea for a great show and want to share your experience, please contact me at randy@droneradioshow.com. So let's learn how ANRA Technologies is answering the call to develop an effective and efficient UTM and mission management system. Let's pick up the interview where I ask Amit to introduce himself.
My name is Amit Ganjoo, and I'm the founder and CEO of ANRA Technologies. ANRA Technologies is a airspace management and enterprise drone workflow orchestration software company. We've been in existence since 2015. The team comes from multiple decades of aviation, robotics, and communications experience. I personally used to be the principal architect for a company called Ericsson, then ran a company that I sold. Then I worked for the U.S. Department of Defense on drone and communications program. And then in 2015, ended up starting this company again. Drones, as you know, are relatively new in the commercial space, but they've been around in the defense arena for multiple decades. So there's a similar set of problems that were being experienced in the defense side that are transitioning into the commercial side. So we had some ideas, filed some patents, and built a quick and dirty prototype that we took it to an event in DC in early 2015 and got the Coolest Technology Award. That's when I decided to transition out of DoD, and we started this company. And 2 weeks later, we got a call from NASA asking us if we would put a Space Act agreement with them for something called UTM. Back then, I didn't know what UTM was. Now I know, but unknowingly, we were actually our software platform we were building was solving the problem that NASA was looking to research. So it was very symbiotic. And since then, we have I think, the privilege of probably being the only company that's been engaged with NASA in all the national campaigns, starting with TCL 1, 2, 3, 4, with FAA, in all the IPP, UTM pilot projects and integration pilot projects. And on our commercial enterprise side, our platforms are used by Fortune 50 companies and others for workflow orchestration and fleet management for drones.
What was the basis of the initial software?
Remember when I talked about hey, the set of challenges were the same. So the prototype we built back in 2015 was a software that was designed to, how do you safely integrate the drones into the national airspace? We are not talking about just one or two drones. When you have hundreds, if not thousands of millions of drones sharing the same airspace. And our software was doing that. And inherently, when you do something like that, you have to do something called deconfliction. Make sure the drones, when they're in the sky, they don't go bumping into each other, don't go bumping into airliners or buildings and stuff like that. So how do you handle all those things? So that's what our software was doing. And it was designed for enterprises that may be running 10, 100 drones for doing maybe linear inspection or mapping missions and stuff. So how do you handle all that? So that's where it all started. And just one component of our architecture or our platform was this airspace management and deconfliction. That's what NASA was looking to research. And that took a life of its own and became our UTM platform.
Let's talk about the UTM platform as it exists today. How has it grown from that one small idea?
It's evolved a lot because this whole industry has been in a crawl, walk, run phase, right? So we have worked hand in hand with industry and research organizations like NASA and others in evolving this concept, starting with simple, doing operations in a rural area, segregated operations where no two drones are flying in the same area, to gradually making airspace more dense with more drones and eventually transitioning into urban areas, where last year we did the NASA TCL-4 tests in downtown areas in Texas, in Corpus Christi, and in Reno, where multiple drones were flying in the same airspace, segregated in space and time. So it's come a long way, and we started with small UAS, these small drones. I'm not talking about the hobby recreational drones that you use to take pictures in your backyard or your homes. I'm talking about drones that would do maybe mapping missions, surveillance missions, or inspecting a power line or a power transmission line or an oil pipeline, those kind of things. So it's evolved from those small UAS to more. Now we are transitioning into the Jetsons age, where eventually you will, what we call as urban air mobility, or NASA is calling advanced air mobility, where you will have flying cars, to say in simplistic terms, where you will have people flying from rooftop to rooftop, or what's called vertiport to vertiport. Before that happens, you will have probably unmanned cargo being delivered using these UAM aircraft. And then the likes of Uber they talk about launching the Uber Air service, just like your Uber X on the ground. So it's come a long way, it's evolved. The base challenges of how you integrate into the airspace, how you orchestrate the workflow for all this, the process. Set of challenges are same, but there are different levels of complexity and specific tweaks for each of these areas that you need to get to meet that specific business requirement.
How does remote ID figure into your system?
If you look, one of the challenges that's holding back the industry is the regulatory framework. The technology is there, but the regulatory, and obviously for good reasons, because the standards of safety in aviation are much higher than when you're on the road. Like if you're driving on the road and something goes wrong, you can pull over to the side of the road. But if you're flying at 500 feet up in the sky or 400 feet up in the sky, if something goes wrong, you can't pull over to the side of the road, right? So there are different levels of safety and the security concerns. So remote ID addresses the security concerns. So let's say you're in Florida area. So if you were to step into your backyard today, but let's say you had a pool in your backyard and your kids are there, and you see their drone out there about, how do you know it's an authorized drone and not a peeping Tom, right? So, or if there's a no-fly zone or public safety event has happened and the cops are using some drones and there's another drone that's there, which doesn't seem like it belongs to cop. How do you know it's supposed to be there? That's where remote identification comes into play. It's just like a digital license plate for drones, just like you have a license plate on the car. I can see the license plate. I don't know the number, but it doesn't mean much to me. But a cop can run that plate and get all the details. Similarly, for drones, this remote identification is the key, where a law enforcement official with the right privileges could get that ID and then do a lookup and know all the details about who the remote pilot, the operator is, what their approved mission is.
Is the UTM system in operation anywhere?
Yes, it is. So we are headquartered here in the DC area. We also have offices in London and in New Delhi. And different places around the world are in different phases. It all starts with innovation, experimentation to operationalization. So there are a lot of experiments going on and some are transitioning to operationalization. To answer your question, so our platform has been used in a ton of what you call operational trials and field demonstrations. In addition to that, we are powering the first of its kind nationwide operational deployment for the whole country of India called Digital Sky. So we are the domain specialists for that and enabling that platform.
What are you using to detect the drones?
For air traffic management, our system integrates different kinds of ground and air-based sensors for detecting cooperative or non-cooperative traffic. So we use radar, we use ADS-B, we use RF detection systems. They all feed into our system, and our system does all that fusion and making sense of all that data to ensure the safety of the airspace.
At the time when the industry was jumping into UTM, it seemed like there were several different approaches and technologies being discussed. Have things started to stabilize where there is a common configuration or a common approach to UTM?
We've come a long way since when we started. So now there are, just like any other industry as it evolves from its nascent to more evolved state. So you have the need for standardization, the technical standards, and interoperability standards. So there are such standards being worked globally. So for example, ASTM is one such body that creates the standards for UTM, and I happen to be the co-chair for the UTM working group. So we have created, we just released out the remote identification standard, which was published in January this year, and we are on track to release our first version of our UTM standard here in the next couple of months by the end of the summer. So standardization is coming in now, and this is not just our company, this is like all major players from the industry in this space, and not just in US. International coming in and creating a standardized interface which makes an interoperable, scalable system. So yes, we have come a long way. So we have standard interfaces and protocols, how we talk and share data with each other and manage the national airspace.
Before we move on to the mission management platform, is there anything you feel we should mention in regard to UTM?
UTM is a framework and it's a foundational block. It's not the end-all be-all. It's an enabler for the whole ecosystem. So as the number of drones in the sky increases, as you have mixed use airspace where you have small, medium, large, you have manned, unmanned aircraft, which is going to happen in our lifetimes in the future. So UTM is an enabler, but there are other associated services that come into play, just like the example of the sensors like radars and detection systems, which kind of feed this common operational picture. UTM is kind of the glue that holds it all together. That's the best way to look at it.
Okay, so let's talk about the mission management software.
Like I mentioned, when we started the company, so we started with this one platform, which was designed for enterprises to manage a bunch of drones, like at scale, do drone operations at scale, from safety management, tracking, flight orchestration, streaming, data management, data integration, data analytics, all those things. And it was handling the deconfliction between these drones because the inherent going in assumption was you will have multiple drones in the airspace. So we took that deconfliction traffic management part, and that started to evolve and took a life of its own and became our UTM platform, whereas our mission management side has continued to evolve. So it's designed for the whole life cycle management for drone operations for an enterprises, all the way from tracking their assets, tracking their resources, planning a flight, tracking a live flight, capturing the data, getting the data into the system, analyzing the data, and pushing the actionable results coming out of analyzing the data back into the enterprise system. So that's what our mission management system does, and it keeps evolving. It's used by enterprises. It's used by Fortune 50 enterprises here and internationally as well.
How does the mission management platform relate to UTM?
The mission management system ties into the UTM system to get airspace clearances and stuff like that. Obviously, since we build both, they're designed to seamlessly integrate, but someone could use the mission management system without the UTM system till UTM at scale is required. So like we have enterprises right now using the system. Some have the integration into UTM, some run it without it, depending on the scale and where they're operating.
Currently, where is this system finding value?
So the places where we see most traction is like there are a lot of feel-good use cases, but where we have seen actual revenue and return on investment has been on the construction, energy, and critical infrastructure side.
There are many companies in the UTM space. What makes ANRA Technologies different from other companies?
That's a great question. So, Andy, how do I say it? So we come at this industry from inside out perspective versus outside in. What happens is a lot of people get excited about this industry and everyone wants a part of the pie, right? But we came at it from inside out. So we helped build the system. We helped define the interface, the standards. So we were not a solution looking for a problem. We had a problem that we created a solution for based on our real world experience. And just because of the fact that's with the approach we came in and the way we built the system from ground up to have these microservices, logical modules, everything in the system is split into microservices. So it's easy for us to use it like a puzzle and we can, like a la carte menu, and we can put things together for a different use case or a different business requirement. And it's a field tested system, and we always, and it might sound cliches, but we always under-promise and over-deliver. So if you see anything on our website or you hear us talk about it, it's not on paper, it's not vaporware. It's something that we've already done and executed and showcased. And proof is in talking to the customers.
In your opinion, what factors have contributed most to the company's success?
One thing is we never strayed away from our core focus. So we never had to pivot or change our focus like what typically a lot of startup companies have to do, because we were fortunate enough to have a focus and keep marching down that path. And because of what we knew about what was needed and stuff like that. So our strategy has always been to identify the problem and solve the problem versus build a solution and then find the problem. I touched on this a little bit earlier, and that hasn't changed. And we've always been very customer focused. We believe in cooperation and teamwork. That's been extremely successful, especially in a state like the industry where we are today, because in such a nascent state, we use the term cooperation versus competition. We even work with our competitors in multiple projects together, because right now, if we don't cooperate, there won't be an industry to compete in a few years down the line. So it's teamwork, collaboration, and cooperation.
How do you characterize today's regulatory environment?
Technology always moves faster than regulation. And in this case, different parts of the world are at different levels. Like FAA is at one level, someone else in Switzerland, Swiss FOCA may be a different level, UK may be a different level. So regulations are always lagging, but some are more ahead, some are less. So we've come a long way. If you were to ask me how far have we come since 2015, we have come. In drone life, 1 year is like 10 years in any other industry. The technology moves so fast, things change so fast. So I still believe it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. We still have a long way to go where we see Jetsons becoming a norm or a common thing and you seeing those things flying in your neighborhood.
How do you see urban air mobility phasing into the airspace?
It's one thing when it's small drones and you're putting a package or a sensor on there. It's different when you're putting humans in there. So we believe that we'll see probably cargo and packages, larger scale, like mid to large size, happening before we see actually people moving around. But it's the future. It's going to happen. But we are transitioning from crawl to walk phase. And in small UAS segment, we are moving from crawl to walk to potentially, in some cases, brisk walking, whereas in UAM space, we are still in the crawl phase.
So what do you see as the future for UTM?
UTM is evolving. It's an enabler at the end of the day. It's going to enable a lot of, especially as we move from these one-off operations to more scaled operations, more beyond visual line of sight operations. UTM helps build the safety case, help ensure the safety of the national airspace. So in terms of future, we believe UTM will become more and more important, and there'll be different aspects of UTM that will become more prominent as we move toward more complex use cases and regulators start firming up their policies and framework.
How will the system be deployed?
Again, it's one of those things that's very country specific, but at a high level, it's going to be a federated system. So it's not going to be one system that does everything. So in US, for example, FAA will run some services which are in control zones, say around airports. But outside of that, they have said, hey, industry, you manage. We'll onboard you, we'll accredit you once you meet the requirements, and then you can manage the UTM services in those areas. But all of those systems need to federate and talk to each other. So for example, let's say an ANRA UTM system, someone was doing a pipeline inspection, and an Amazon package delivery is prime air delivery is happening in the same area. Both the UTM systems need to share data with each other and exchange data so we can ensure the safety of the airspace and create airspace like virtual highways in the sky, separated in 4 dimensions, in space and time, to ensure everything goes as it should.
How has the pandemic affected operations?
COVID has been an interesting experience for us. So we've been virtual for almost like 4.5 months, all our locations. So it has created its own set of challenges in terms of a lot of the opportunities we were seeing. The timelines have slipped to the right. But on the flip side, there are other things that are speeding up. Like COVID has highlighted the importance of drones in doing package deliveries, like when people are not leaving home, like could I be delivering medicals and packages to their doorstep or close by? Like those kind of things are enabling beyond visual line of sight operations so I can fly. So we are seeing globally better appetite to allow and permit from a regulatory point of view those kind of operations.
How long do you think it will be before we see a wide-scale, effective UTM system?
The future is closer than we all think. And I know it seems it's quite far away. Now, in some cases, it'll be longer than others, but we will see the acceptance rate becoming higher and more UAS. Maybe we start with small to medium in the sky. So be optimist. I know there's been a lot of PR marketing, which has kind of hurt the industry, where the analyst forecasts have said we'll have gazillion million drones in 2020, and it didn't happen. So those kind of things. It's going to happen. It's going to take time. Just be prepared for the marathon, but it's coming.
And for my final question, Amit, what message would you like to leave regarding ANRA Technologies and UTM?
I would say if you want to work with the folks that actually understand the space and come from the space and are working from it from inside out and have broader motives than just financial gains, come talk to us. You'll see the difference.
That's it for episode 282 of the Drone Radio Show. I hope you enjoyed hearing from Amit Ganjoo of ANRA Technologies. I want to thank Amit for taking the time to speak with me. If you want to learn more about ANRA Technologies or want to connect with Amit, check out the webpage at anratechnologies.com. If you like the Drone Radio Show, please consider supporting the podcast with a small donation. The content is always free, but for as little as $1, you can help defray the cost of production. To donate, go to droneradioshow.com/donate. And thanks for listening. Your support means a lot to me, and I hope you'll listen to more episodes of the Drone Radio Show podcast to hear how others are using drones for business, fun, and research. For the Drone Radio Show, I'm Randy Goers.
This has been the Drone Radio Show podcast. More information on today's show can be found on our website at www.droneradioshow.com. If you're using drone technology for business, fun, or research and would like to share your experience on the show, please visit our website and fill out a guest appearance application. And don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media channels.